Welcome everyone to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar for first year schools. This month we're going to be talking about creating the activities, identifying the activities that you'll implement next year as part of your RSC school counseling program. My name is Sue Reynolds and I'm president of the American Student Achievement Institute. So also with us on this webinar is Debbie Hall. And as you know, Debbie is our strategic planning specialist for Redesigning School Counseling. She is the person who's been taking your questions all year and monitoring your work. When you've been submitting work, Debbie's been the one who's been reviewing it against our rubric for Redesigning School Counseling, as well as the Indiana rubric for Gold Star schools and the ASCA rubric for the ASCA Ramp Award. So Debbie, as always, is available for your questions as you go along, and we encourage you to just think of Debbie as part of your team. Feel free to call her to bounce ideas off of, or to chat with her, or ask her specific questions. So, okay. So this is the agenda for today. We're going to be doing the quick review, and then this month, and I'm sorry this slide didn't get updated, this month is okay, I'm hearing that I'm still cutting out. Let me see if we can fix that real quickly. And okay, Debbie, is that you? Oh my gosh, let me see what we can do here.
I'm here, but we're having a hard time hearing you transmit.
Yeah, give me 1 second. I keep seeing if yeah, here we go. I'll be out for 1 second. I'm going to change to the Wi-Fi on my smartphone instead of the Wi-Fi where we're staying. So let me get that back up and then we'll do a quick start over. Hang on here 1 second, everyone. Okay, I should be back. Debbie, how is this? Is this better?
I can hear you now.
Okay, let's do this. I'm going to... Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar for first year schools. The focus of this webinar is to help schools plan their activities for next school year. My name is Sue Reynolds and I am president of the American Student Achievement Institute. Also with us on this webinar is Debbie Howell. Debbie is our strategic planning specialist for Redesigning School Counseling. Debbie is the one who is there to answer all your questions on the phone or via email. She's also reviewing your work as you submit it against our rubric for Redesigning School Counseling, as well as the Indiana Department of Education's rubric for Gold Star School Counseling and the ASCA rubric for the ASCA Ramp Award. Okay, so here's the webinar agenda. We'll be looking at, as we always do, a quick review of the beliefs, the process, and the products. This month we'll be talking about activities that address your root causes. We'll do a meeting walkthrough. We'll look at submissions and the rubric for those submissions that are coming in this month. And then we'll also look at your online system. So let's begin with that review. First of all, our main belief is that school counseling programs help students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. So this is just a pyramid that kind of shows the same thing. Again, we believe that school counseling programs implement guidance activities and counseling activities that help students make good choices. And when students make good choices, student achievement tends to go up. And when you've been designing your school counseling program this year, we just took that pyramid and we worked it backwards. We started out with your school's achievement goals and your school improvement plan. Then we said, okay, what choices do kids need to make in order for our school to reach those achievement goals? And then we looked at what guidance and counseling activities do we need to put in place to help kids make those sound choices. And that's what we're talking about today, is those activities that we need to put in place. So in terms of the process, we started out last spring getting ready. You put together a steering team, you collected data, you did some self-studies, and you convened an advisory council, very important. Then with your advisory council, you talked with them in September about what is redesigning school counseling. You defined the RSC vocabulary and terminology for them. Then in October, you asked the council to help you vision, and you kind of painted a picture of the ideal students, the ideal school counseling program, and your ideal student achievement data. And then you said, okay, for us to move towards that vision, what do we need our program goals to be? And of course, in RSC, all of your program goals focus around student choices. We want to look at student practices, student behaviors, the things that kids are doing that will help your school reach your school achievement goals. So you defined all of the gazillion things that kids need to do, all the choices that they need to make in order to be a successful student in your building. Then you kind of figured that there were probably too many things for you to focus on all at once, and we needed to narrow down that list. But before narrowing down the list, in December, you talked with your advisory council about expanding your resources. How could you get more time? How could you get more funding, more energy? And then after expanding your resources, then you narrowed down your program goals into what we call your priority goals. And most schools will end up with 1, 2, or 3 priority goals, which are things that they really want to hit hard in the coming school year. So those are the choices, the priority choices that your school counseling program is going to help kids make. Then last month, you started to define, well, why aren't kids making those choices? We called that a root cause analysis. And basically, you looked at 3 sets of data. You looked at guidance data, counseling data, and opportunity data. So we're looking again at why kids aren't making the choices we want them to make. And it could be that the kids didn't have the knowledge that they needed, the information that they needed to make those choices. And if so, then we know we have a guidance issue. It could be that they had personal or social things that were getting in the way. And if so, then we've got a counseling issue. Or it could be just that the adults in the building haven't given the kids the opportunity to make the choices that we know that they need to make. For example, we may have 75 kids in a high school that all could succeed in an AP class, but we only offer one section of AP, and so not all kids can get into that class. So we've made it impossible for some students to have the opportunity to make the choice to enroll in that class. So all of the data helped you figure out, are kids not making good choices because we have a guidance issue, they don't have knowledge or skills, it's a counseling issue, they've got social personal things getting in the way, or it's an opportunity issue. The adults in the building are not giving kids the opportunity to make the choices that we want them to make. And so you're coming into this month with those root causes defined. We know, you know now, that kids are not making the choices that we need them to make to reach your achievement goals because, and then however you answer that, because they don't know what a FAFSA is, because we don't give them the opportunity to enroll in AP, because they are so overwhelmed with bullying issues that they're just not functioning very well at all at school. So that was the root cause analysis. And then this month is where all of this gets really rich. Everything until this month has been in preparation for this moment. So in March, we're going to start looking at activities. But instead of just having that be random, just by our hunches, oh, I think the kids might need some group counseling, or oh, I think the kids might need information about FAFSA. Instead of just basing those activities on our hunches about what kids need, we have gone through a very careful process to figure out what choices kids need to make and then what's getting in the way of kids making those choices. And now this month, we're going to be able to really target guidance and counseling activities on the root causes. So that's what we're doing this month, is looking at our root causes and then figuring out what are we going to do about those things, and those will be our activities. Then this is also the last discussion with your advisory council, and then next month and in May also we'll start preparing the activities that the council and you have come up with for implementation next year. So we'll develop next month guidance lessons, program calendar, an annual budget. That does not involve your advisory council. That is just the counselors working on those things. Okay, so at this point, your Gold Star / RSC / ramp school counseling portfolio is almost finished. Your program is almost totally designed. You have a vision, you have program goals, you have a resource expansion plan, you have priority goals, and you have root causes. Now we need to go to the action part. What are we going to do to address those root causes? So before we go on, let's just see if anybody has any questions. If so, jump in here, just unmute yourself and jump in. Okay, not hearing anything, not seeing any hands up, nobody's typed a question in, so I think we're good. I'm going to go on then. Okay, so this month's task is to come up with the highest leverage activities that we can possibly implement in order to nail those root causes. So the first thing we'll talk about is how to prepare for this meeting. So what we're going to do is we're going to send a memo to your council members. And in that memo, we're going to enter our current activities. We're also going to enter our current activities into the system. We're going to print our goals crosswalk and our activities crosswalk. And then prior to the meeting, the steering team is also just on your own going to start exploring some other activity ideas by looking at our lessons plan database and our community activities database. So 4 activities to do before you get to your council meeting. One is to send the council members a memo, enter your current activities into the system, print those 2 crosswalks, and then explore some possible other activities. Okay, then let's go to the online system next before we talk about post-meeting. So I'm going to do this in a little bit different order today. In the past, we've always looked at the meeting first, and then we've looked at the system. I think looking at the meeting will make more sense if you see all the resources first. So I'm going to scroll down on the process page to the March resources. Okay, so let's just kind of walk through all the resources that are going to help you, one, define your activities and then check your activities. So you've registered for this webinar, you've watched the webcast of this webinar if you're not participating live, then you've sent a memo to your advisory council members. And let me show you what that memo is going to look like. It will look like this. So we've said to your council's members, thank you for participating, and then here's the next meeting time and location. We've said, okay, at this point, here are our priority goals and our root causes. So in here, you've typed in, our priority goal is to increase the percentage of students who complete a FAFSA, who turn in all their homework, whatever you want the choices to be your priority goals. And then in this column, you've written down the root causes. Why aren't kids making this choice? So we've kind of summarized the last 2 meetings for your council members. Okay, then we're kind of looking forward. At our next meeting, we will brainstorm activities that we might implement to address our root causes and priority goals. And then we've given our council members some pre-meeting tasks. First of all, we're asking them to think about guidance, counseling, and advocacy activities that you might implement to help reach the priority goals. And then we're reminding people these activities could be guidance activities or counseling activities or advocacy activities. And then we're telling folks we have 2 databases that you could look through to get an idea. So let's say that one of the student choices was that, so let me scroll back up here. Let's say that one of these student choices up here, you said to decrease the percentage of students who know what a FAFSA is or who submit a FAFSA. And then in the root causes, you said kids don't know what a FAFSA is, kids don't know where to get one, kids don't know about need-based financial aid. So you've entered a bunch of root causes. So now we're asking your council to start thinking about what can we do about that? How are we going to help kids know what a FAFSA is and how to submit one? So if I click on this, go ahead and do that. So we'll open that up. This is a database of school counseling lesson plans that have been entered into our system by previous RSC schools. So there's a lot of different ways that I can search in this database. I'm just going to do the word search, and I'm just going to type in FAFSA and see if any other schools have entered activities about FAFSA. And so when I go in, give me 1 second here, there we go. When I go in, I can see that there is, in this case, 1 activity so far that schools have entered around FAFSA. And I can see that this was an activity entered by Laura Robbins at South Newton Junior Senior High School. And the system is telling me that 1 other school has imported Laura's lesson plan. And that tells me that, you know, somebody else has read this lesson plan and they thought it was well written enough that they just imported it into their school counseling program. So I can click here to view the full lesson plan that gives everything that Laura typed in. I can create a report of everything that Laura put into the system about the lesson plan, or I can import this lesson into my school's lesson plans. So if I like what Laura did, I can just import this lesson plan into my lesson plans, and it will give a reference to Laura and drop that lesson plan, that activity into your school counseling program. So, okay, so just a really nice way to explore different lesson plans. Let's say you're a 3rd grade, you're responsible for 3rd graders, and you want to look at everything that people put in that would apply to 3rd graders. I can just check grade 3, do a search, and all the lesson plans that are applicable for 3rd graders will pop up. I can say, you know, we're trying to close an achievement gap between our paid lunch and our free and reduced lunch kids. Is there, are there lesson plans that schools have put in that would really focus on free and reduced lunch kids? I can say I'm looking for group counseling lessons or individual guidance lessons. Another thing that I think is interesting is that if you put in the name of the person, like we just found Laura. If I like the way Laura writes lesson plans, I can put her name in here and click search, and all of Laura's lesson plans will pop into the system. So lots of ways to search there for guidance lessons. Okay, then also we also give, and this is really important, we also give your council members a way to search activities that are being implemented by community organizations. So let me go ahead and open up this one, and you'll see here is another database. This is a database that goes with the College Success Coalition, and I can go ahead and click write FAFSA in here as well and do a search, and you can see that in this database of about 2,000 different activities, there are 271 that have to do with FAFSA. Some of these are implemented by schools, some are implemented by community organizations. So yeah, so it's just another way, like here's the 21st Century Scholars that has implemented that activity that has to do with FAFSA. So yeah, so it's a way, what we're trying to do is to help your community organizations to think kind of out of the box, that it's not just schools that can provide student guidance, but it's also community organizations. And if you think about it, the school counselors are talking about FAFSA, and then they go to Boy Scouts and they're talking about FAFSA, and then they go to their faith-based organization, their youth group ministers talking about FAFSA. If the grocery stores are writing "Don't forget the FAFSA deadline" on their grocery store bags, or on the pizza boxes or whatever, we're just getting the message out to kids from lots of different directions. The idea is on some of the guidance lessons that no matter where kids are turning, if it's at, in the community, at school, at home, that somebody is talking to them about these this content. So, okay, and we hope that as your community organizations on your council start to search those community-based activities, they'll get some ideas for things that they could do. Okay, so let's go back to the, let's go back to the memo. And so then what we're asking your council members to do is to do this research before they come to your meeting, and to come to your meeting with some ideas about what the school could do to help kids, to help address the root causes that are keeping kids from making the choices that we want them to make. So, okay, I'm going to go back to the process page. So that was the memo. Then we want to make sure that you've entered the current program activities, all of them, that you're currently doing into the system. So we've done this before, I think, on the non-program activities, but let's just review this real quickly. So we're going to enter a program activity, and you'll just put in the title, make sure it's descriptive, a brief description, what kind of activity it is. So it's a academic guidance activity, let's say. We're going to connect it with your program goals. So when you click this, the program goals that you entered prior to this step, so your own school's program goals, will appear here. Remember that all these goals are student choices. So you just click the ones that this activity is going to address. That's how we're going to create a crosswalk report for you that you'll look at a little later. Then same thing with the guidance indicators. These indicators are aligned with the Indiana Student Standards for guidance. They're also aligned with the ASCA standards. So you would just find the standards and indicators that this activity addresses, click those off. That's going to allow us to create another crosswalk. Then you go on and say, what grade levels participate in this activity, what student groups this activity is targeting. For most of your activities, there won't be a specific student group target, so you would click all students. However, at least one of your activities has to address a guidance gap. That's both an Indiana Gold Star requirement and an ASCA ramp requirement. So we're looking for a gap group, a guidance gap group. Well, you may look through all your data, and you may find that your paid lunch kids are signing up for AP classes at a higher rate than your free and reduced lunch kids. So you may design a specific activity for your free and reduced lunch kids to help them understand that what options are there to, let's say, pay for the AP exam for lower income kids. So what I would do in that case is just click free and reduced, and then that will identify this activity as a guidance gap activity, as a closing the gap activity. Then you're going to check for the activity, what month the activity happens in, or months, plural. And this, when you do this, what the computer is doing is creating a calendar for you. So after you've entered all of your activities, you'll be able to print a program calendar. Who's responsible? You'll just click the people, and if it's somebody that's not listed here, then just click that and then put their name in. And then make sure after all the blanks are filled in, you can save and add a new activity, and save and return to the activities page. So, okay, so that's how you get the activities in, and we really need every little activity that you're doing. If you think about it, most school counseling programs have like gazillion activities. You're going to be entering a gazillion activities here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the process page. So I have, where am I? I have entered the current program activities. Now that the program activities are in, I can start looking at some of these crosswalks. So the first thing I'm going to do is check the program goals crosswalk just to make sure that I have activities that support each one of my goals. So I'm going to click on that crosswalk, and you'll see here that the first thing the system is telling you is here are your priority goals. Have an up-to-date written for your course plan. I've got an activity that will help kids do that. On the next one, have taken or plan to take an AP course in high school, I don't have any activities to help kids make that choice. So how am I possibly going to reach that goal if I'm not doing anything that would enable kids to make that choice? So I have one of two choices here. I can either add an activity or I can get rid of the goal. But this is what we don't want to see. We don't want to see a goal that has no activity supporting it. If you have this situation, it's either add an activity or get rid of the goal. Also, for a lot of your goals, you're going to have multiple activities written down. It's not just going to be one activity. You're going to introduce the concept in this activity. You're going to reinforce it in this activity. So it doesn't always have to be one-to-one. Really, if you're wanting to reach a goal, you're going to have multiple activities that keep driving students towards making that choice. Then, after your priority goals, we list your non-priority goals. We do that even though this is a non-priority goal and we're not hitting it in a big way next year. We also know that you're doing little things to help kids make all of these choices, even though it's not a priority goal. So what are you doing to help kids discuss future plans with their parents, or discuss their future plans with their school counselor, or to not have absences? So all the activities that you do that address these things, if you'll write them in there, that's really good. So that will paint the picture of your whole program, the things that you're doing to support your non-priority goals, as well as the things that you're doing that support your priority goals. And remember, this is a report, so you're not actually typing anything in here. When you input the activity information, it automatically creates this report. And if you find any of these little red flags, then you know you've got something to think about. Okay, that's the goals crosswalk. The next thing we want to do is to look at the activities crosswalk. So I'm going to click on that crosswalk, and we'll see that in this case I've listed the activities. So in this case there's AP dual credit recruitment for federal lunch program kids, but it's not been associated with any goal. And that makes me wonder, why are you doing it? Why are we spending our valuable time doing this activity if it doesn't relate to any of our goals? So if you get this kind of a flag in the activities crosswalk, it would tell you, maybe we can save some time by getting rid of that activity since it doesn't align with any of our goals. And then you'd want to delete this activity. Or, and in this case more likely, you're thinking, oops, I forgot a goal. One of our goals is to increase enrollment in AP for our free and reduced lunch kids program, our free and reduced lunch kids. So I need to put a goal in that aligns with that. So yeah, so each of these activities should be able to align with at least one goal. And if it doesn't, then the question is, why are we doing that activity? Okay, so those two reports help you really think about the alignment between your activities and your goals. Okay, so another thing we'd like you to consider before you start designing your activities is advice from other schools. So because so many schools are using RSC to do either Indiana Gold Star or RAMP, we've been able to collect information from all of those schools. So here are my goals, and they're all the student choices that I have. And then in this column, I can get advice from other schools that have had a similar goal. So I'm going to look at have an up-to-date written four-year course plan. That's one of my favorite student choice goals. I'm going to open up the advice from other schools, and I see that from at Brebeuf, one of the things that, and let me back up. The first set of advice is advice from schools that have this goal and who met their goal. They were able to create this four-year course plan for all kids. So at Brebeuf, she said that they keep all of their information on the Google Drive. And so you may be thinking, oh, that's interesting. If they would share that with me, I maybe wouldn't have to start from scratch. Contact the counseling department at Brebeuf and ask them if they would share that format with you. Here's another from Brebeuf. We incorporated this goal into our required freshman seminar class. Interesting. So that's how they got it in. Eastern High School. All students update the four-year course plan during the time they are scheduling for classes. And both must be turned in and are kept on file. And then here is advice from schools for whatever reason didn't meet the goal. And Cardinal Ritter said, okay, this year we're going to do more presentations regarding the four-year plan. So it was just an implementation issue there. At Heritage, their advice to you is that students need to see the terminology in the four-year plan on a monthly basis. We complete the four-year course plan once a year, and then the kids forget that they've even completed it. So we need to keep coming back and revisiting it. So I think the advice from other schools that have common goals might help you think about how to design activities for your goal. Okay, I'm going to go back to the process page. And now I've looked at advice from other schools. Here is another place where we can explore the school counseling lesson plans that we went through already and the community organization lesson plans that may give you some idea about different activities to do. Then we're going to conduct the advisory council meeting. I'll show you that in a minute. And then the next steps that we want to do also is to do some further crosswalks. There's a crosswalk that the computer gives you that shows you what you're doing for specific student groups. So let me open up that one. Again, there's no data entry here. Everything's coming off of the activity entry pages. So as I look at this for our demo school, I can see that this school is not doing anything special to provide guidance for their boys or their girls or their blacks. Scroll down here, or their Asians. Just one sec here. Or their Asians. There we go. Or their whites, or their Hispanics. But they are doing something specifically for their free and reduced lunch kids. And here's the activity that we looked at earlier. They are doing a specific activity around AP dual credit recruitment for students enrolled in the federal lunch program. So in this school, they are focusing on closing a gap between their free and reduced lunch kids and their paid lunch kids. So this is their gap group. That would meet both Indiana DOE's and ASCA RAMP's requirement for closing a gap. And there may be other student groups here as I scroll down that the school is focusing on, but we want to make sure that there's at least one place where you're focusing on closing a guidance gap for your students. Okay, then there's also the guidance standards crosswalk. So this is a report that gives you each of the guidance indicators that aligns with Indiana Gold Star and ASCA RAMP, and then it will tell you what activities are you doing to address this indicator. So if you are an Indiana school, you need to implement activities that address every single one of these indicators in order to earn the Gold Star Award. At first, when I say that, there's a lot of panic among schools because it seems like a lot of work. But remember, these indicators are like minuscule bits of knowledge and skills. In a lot of cases, we find that one guidance activity may be addressing 7 or 8 different indicators. So it doesn't have to be one activity for one indicator. Look at how can you group those indicators into multiple indicators into one guidance activity. One other thing to remember is that a lot of a lot of the indicators can be addressed by others. It doesn't have to be the school counselor. So if you have a teacher advisor program, they're probably addressing a lot of these indicators. If you teach health in your school, in the health curriculum, there's a lot of personal social content. So you may be addressing a lot of the personal social indicators in your health classes. Family and consumer science has a major component in their national curriculum about career development. And so your family and consumer science teacher may be teaching to a lot of these indicators. So it doesn't have to be just the school counselors. It can be multiple indicators in one activity. And that is for Indiana. Outside of Indiana, if you're just working on the Ask a Ramp award, what Ask a Ramp wants you to do is to look for the indicators that are most problematic in your school, and the expectation is that you would address just those indicators, not all, but just the ones that are problematic for your school. Okay, so that's the indicator crosswalk, and again, anytime you've got these red, messages, there's an issue. So I've checked all of the crosswalks. Now, based on what I've learned from those crosswalks, I'm going to update my program activities. So that may be tweaking some of the activities that you already have, like, we might say that we want to, have this luncheon just be for federal lunch program kids, and so we're going to edit that one and tweak it. Or we might want to add new activities. The other thing we can do is we can delete activities. So based on all those crosswalks and what we learned from them and what we learned from your council meeting, then we'll come back and either delete, edit, or enter new activities. Okay, and then finally you would enter minutes from your meeting, and then here's the rubric. We'll go over that in a second, and then submit the email to Debbie that you're ready for her to review your activities. Okay, jump in here with questions if you have them. Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. Okay, so real quickly, let's go through then the content of the discussion with your council. So we're in front of your council now and you're facilitating the meeting. Remember, your council has come to your meeting understanding what your goals are, your student choices, the goals that you have for student choices. They understand what's getting in the way, your root causes, and before coming to your meeting, they've thought about what activities could the school do or what activities could our community organizations do to address those root causes. So when you're talking with your council, we're starting out with a review, and we've already covered this, so I'm not going to do it again. Okay, and we're reminding them that after every council meeting, there is a product that comes out of the discussion, and today we're going to be discussing activities, and a list of school counseling activities will be the product that comes out of this discussion. So, activities overview. It's been a long time since you talked about the guidance activities terminology with your advisory council, so we're going to look at that once again. We're just reminding people that school counseling activities fall into 4 areas. Guidance activities, and you're kind of reviewing those a little bit, and counseling activities, and then advocacy activities, and then management activities. We're also reminding people that, although we don't like it, school counselors also do some non-program activities. And so you reminding people that that is another type of activity that school counselors are often asked to do. So then we're going to review the activity focus, and we're just reminding people, and I usually when I'm discussing this slide, I'll say let's start at the bottom so you kind of understand how activities fit into this process. Today we're going to look at activities, and those activities will address the root causes that we came up with last month, and with the thinking that if we can make those root causes go away, the kids will start making the choice that we want them to make. For example, if our goal is to increase the percentage of free and reduced lunch seniors who take an AP or dual credit course, our root causes might be that students aren't aware of those courses, we don't offer enough of those courses, or kids can't afford the dual credit tuition or the AP test fees. So now, this month, we're going to talk about the activities. What are we going to do about those root causes? And so here are some possible activities, that could be implemented in this case. The key thing that we want to establish in this slide is that our activities are not random. They're not just things we're doing because it's fun to do or because we have a hunch, we're guessing that the kids need them, but we're really focusing in on those root causes. Why aren't kids making the choices that we want them to make? And then what are we going to do about it? That's the activities. Okay, so today's question is, what activities should we implement next year to address each root cause that is interfering with our program goals? And remembering that there's 4 different kinds of activities that we can draw from: guidance, counseling, advocacy, and management. So the key question number 1 is, do we have sufficient activities to impact each priority goal and its root causes? And if we don't have enough activities, should we delete the goal? Should we revise a current activity to make it stronger? Or should we add a new activity? So if it doesn't look like we're going to reach our goal, what are we going to do about it? We can get rid of the goal, or we can revise our activities or add new activities. Key question number 2 is, do we have sufficient activities to continue impacting our non-priority goals? Even though these aren't priority goals, we want to keep them going. We want kids to continue to make those good choices as well. So can we keep the non-priority goals going too? And if not, do we need to get rid of some of the non-priority goals? I would not recommend that. I would keep those goals in there even if you can't meet them right off. So do we keep the goals, do we revise the current activity, or do we add new activities? And then number 3, when we look at all of our current activities, do they support at least one program goal? And if not, should we delete those activities or add a new program goal? So we're kind of going, these last 3 key questions are kind of an overview of what's to come. So what we're going to do, we're explaining to the councils, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a report called the Priority Goals Crosswalk. And that report, let me open that up for you. That report, I think I skipped over those steps, was up here on step 5, print the program goals crosswalk. We looked at them, but that report, just as a reminder, lists your goals and then the activities underneath them. So we've passed out a copy of that report to your council, and then we're saying, okay, for our first priority goal, which is to increase the percentage of students who, and then you've typed that in, and then you've explained here are the root causes, things that are getting in the way. And you've identified, is this an opportunity root cause or is it a knowledge issue? Knowledge root cause. And then we're saying, okay, everybody, let's look at that crosswalk report and let's ask ourselves, are there any activities that should be omitted? Are there any activities that should be revised? So we're directing them to look at that part in the report. They can see all the activities that are listed there for that goal. And then we can say, okay, how are these activities going? Do we need to tweak any of them? Do we need to get rid of any of them? Then we're saying also, Are there any new activities that we should be doing to help kids make that choice? And this is a poster that you'll blow up. And if the council does have new ideas for new activities, as they're discussing them, somebody on your steering team would just jot those activities down, and you'd be thinking about, okay, this is a possible new activity for grade, 9, all students or free and reduced lunch or whatever. And then later we're going to decide if we want to add these activities in or if we're going to park them for a future year. So that part will come later. Okay, so the last 3 slides you're going to do for each of your priority goals. So let me back up. The first slide will say priority goal number 1, increase the percentage of students who enroll in an AP class. You'll go through that discussion for that priority goal. Then you'll come back to this slide and you'll say priority goal number 2, increase the percentage of students who submit a FAFSA, all the root causes, and then you'll work through the next 3 slides of that as well. So, and I think one part, as you're finishing each of the priority goals, that's the point where we want to then decide, okay, now that we've brainstormed this list, are these activities that we're going to add or park? So at the end of each segment, each discussion of each priority goal, right then you'll decide, do we add this activity for next year or do we park it? Okay, so we're going to replicate those 3 slides for every goal that you have, every priority goal that you have. Okay, then we're going to do kind of a similar thing for the 9 priority goals. We're going to say that we're going to tell the council that before the meeting, the steering team kind of flagged 9 non-priority goals that even though they're not priority, you want to kind of have an impact on in a minor way next year. So you've just taken the bottom part of that report, you're put a little star next to the non-priority goals that you do want to kind of work a little bit on next year as well. Not in a big way, because then it would be a priority goal, but just in a minor way. And then you're saying, okay, for these non-priority goals that we kind of flagged as being somewhat important to work on next year, should the activities be omitted or should they be revised? So you're starting out with that discussion, and then you're saying, okay, are there any other activities we should be doing? And then right then decide if you want to add or park those activities. Okay, so that's that. Let me just give you a second to jump in with questions. Just go ahead and unmute yourself, or Debbie, if anybody's typed in a question I need to address, this would be a good time to do that before we move on. Okay, not hearing anything, so let's go on. So that was, I'm sorry, Debbie, question? Okay, sounds like no questions. Okay, so then we're going to move on with the council to the activity crosswalk. And we're saying to the council, for each activity now, we want to see, does the activity support a program goal? And if not, maybe we should delete that activity, or maybe we should add a new goal. So we've passed out this report. Here's what a reminder. Here's what it looks like. And we're looking at all the activities. And here's this activity called Counselor Back to School Lunch. And it's a flag that does not support any goal. So I'd be thinking with your council, gosh, why are we doing that activity? Is there a goal that we've missed? And so the question is really, why are you doing that activity? What are you hoping to achieve? You want students to make this choice. And it may be that you want them to choose to come see the counselor when they have an issue. That's a choice. And so that's why you're doing this activity, to build the relationship between the counselor and the students so that they will choose to come see you. So if that's the case, then add that goal in. If you can't think of a good reason why you're doing that activity, if it doesn't align with any goal, then just delete the activity. Okay, so you can discuss that with your advisory council. And then after that, we're going to come down to the final checks. So we know which current activities we're keeping. We know which new activities we're adding, and now we want to check a couple of things. In this slide, we're reminding people this is how much time the counselors collectively have allocated towards guidance counseling, advocacy management, and non-program. And that came from your resources discussion in a couple of months ago. And so now we're saying, given that this is the time we're going to have available next year, are all those activities that we have planned for the next year realistic? I would really advise that if you are feeling totally overwhelmed at this point, that it's time for you to think carefully too about, can you really do all those activities? You know, in the RSC school counseling program, if there's an activity in your program, the expectation is that you're going to do it. And next year we'll monitor whether or not those activities got implemented. So if there's too much on your plate, this is like your last time to say, wait a minute, there's no way we can possibly get all that stuff done. And this screen will help you do that. You'll be able to say, we only have 5% of our time listed for guidance, and there are 35 guidance activities in there. There's no way that that's going to happen. We need to go back and narrow that down somewhat. It may mean that you need to get rid of some goals if you can't, if you can't implement the activities that are aligned with that goal. So this is your last chance. It's the council's last chance to say, can we really do all this stuff? If you make it past this point and you say you're going to do this stuff, then the expectation is that you will do those activities. And we're hoping that you'll hold yourselves accountable for doing the activities and for students making better choices in the areas that those activities are targeting. So, okay, last chance to get realistic about how much you're committing to. Okay, same thing with resources. This is your last chance to think, do we have the funding? Do we have the counselors on staff? Do we have the knowledge and the skills or the technology to do those activities? And if the answer is no, or you're feeling nervous about that, then it's time to say, I probably really do need some professional development before I can teach students how to, about, need-based financial aid or whatever. So it's your chance to say things like that. Or I'm going to need funding in order to purchase the materials that I need to use in my classroom guidance activities. So again, this is your last chance to kind of make sure that everything's within your means, that you have the capacity for delivering the program. So this check is to check to make sure that the activities are addressing the things outside of your control that you need to do. So the first one is to look at, are the activities addressing all of your state laws and your district requirements? For example, in Indiana, there's a state law that students in grades 6 and above have to create a graduation plan. So do you have activities in your program that are going to help students do that? If not, then you've got a program that's not compliant with state laws, and that's not good. So, so you need to kind of do some research. What are your state laws? And then make sure that you're addressing them. And then for the Ask a Ramp Award, you need at least one activity that addresses a specific student group that will be a guidance gap activity, closing the gap activity. And you can discover that again by going to that student group crosswalk. And then also for Ask a Ramp and for Gold Star, do you have at least one activity that addresses group counseling? So at least one activity should be a group counseling activity. Okay, then for the ASCA Gold Star Award, same thing for Indiana, I'm sorry, I said ASCA, Indiana Gold Star Award. We want to make sure that at least one activity is addressing a student group, at least one activity deals with group counseling, but then you also need at least 3 activities that are guidance activities: academic guidance, career guidance, personal social guidance. Remember, these are activities when we're in teaching mode. We're helping students develop the skills and the knowledge they need to make better choices. So we need 3 activities in academic guidance, we need 3 career guidance activities, and 3 personal social guidance activities. So sometimes counselors get mixed up on the personal social guidance activities because often personal social is responsive and it's more, it's not guidance based, it's more counseling based. But a guidance activity might be something like teaching kids about bullying, teaching students how to stand up for themselves, how to be assertive rather than passive or aggressive. Those personal social skills. And then also in Indiana, do you have activities that address each of those Indiana guidance indicators? And then we've got a crosswalk report that will help you determine that as well. So, okay. Then finally, the last thing, let me go back. So on this slide with these required activities, I would just use this slide to explain to your council that in addition to everything that you've talked about with them, there are some outside requirements that you're going to have to meet with your activities. And so, you're kind of checking, and you will be checking, you're telling them that you will be checking to make sure that you've got those activities addressed. Okay. So finally, at the end of all of our council discussions, we're saying, okay, if we implement these activities, if these are the activities that end up in our plan, can you as a council member live with those activities that make up our program? And we're maybe reminding people they don't have to love them. They just need to be able to support them publicly. So can we publicly support these activities as the ones that our school counseling program will implement? That's the final slide. We're ending up with a thank you to folks for participating in your council. And I should mention too that a lot of counselors here will have some kind of certificate or maybe some special cookies or cupcakes or something just to celebrate that this is the final discussion for the year. You may also wish to announce to your council that next year the council will continue, but it's just 2 meetings during the year. There's a meeting at the end of the first semester to kind of look at are all of your activities getting implemented that you had planned, and then there's a meeting at the end of the second semester to look at new student data to see if those activities are having an impact. So while you're thanking them and celebrating the close of this year, you might just want to let them know that the council goes on, and as you implement the activities that you've planned, the council will be involved twice next year to kind of give feedback on how those activities are going. So okay, let me go back. There's one other thing. I want to look at the rubric items. So again, jump in if you have questions. So this slide is just kind of a reminder, we've talked about this, that after your meeting, you're again going to look at all of these crosswalks and making sure that you've got the right activities for your program so that you'll reach your goals. Okay, so we've talked about the online system, we've done the walkthrough, let's look at the submissions. So you're going to submit all of your activities, and in all 5 of those areas, so all parts of each activity is complete and the description is clear and concise. If we can't understand what the activity is talking about, chances are your school board, principal, and others at home will not be able to either. So in your counseling activities, at least one activity involves group counseling, and then the description for the group counseling activities names each activity that will be included in the group counseling session. Also, there's a new indicator is that in your group counseling, you need a separate lesson plan for each activity in your group counseling. When we get to lesson plans, we'll cover that. So it really helps in this section to have a separate activity in the system for each of your for each activity that is part of your group counseling program. So in other words, if you have group counseling to help kids who have problems with aggression, and it's going to be a 12-week group, and within that 12 weeks you're introducing 4 different guidance lessons. You'd want to make sure then that you've got a counseling activity in the system for each of the 4 guidance activities. So then in guidance activities, at least one activity addresses the guidance needs of a specific student group, and then here are the Indiana only ones. That there's 3 that are academic, 3 personal social, 3 career, and that you've addressed each of the guidance indicators. Okay, and then minutes, nothing new here. Okay, so and then finally, again, I want to emphasize this capacity check. Do the school counselors in your school have the capacity to implement all of your program activities? If the answer is no, and then you're not going to be able to reach your goals. And a year from now, when we come back to your council and say, oh, here are our goals, and oh, so we didn't reach them, we just ran out of time, that's not what you want to say. You want to be able to say, here are our goals. We implemented each one of our activities, and look, kids are making better choices. A year ago, only 17% of them chose to enroll in an AP class, and this last year, 28% of them chose to enroll in an AP class. That data is really going to make your program look strong. It's great for advocating for your program, and it also shows you if your activities aren't working. It'll show you that you missed the boat and need to redesign. So okay, I think that's it. We talked about this that will happen next year. You're going to indicate which activities are fully implemented, and then you're going to enter follow-up data next year for those activities, for those student choices, and that's it. So let me pause one more time, and this is your last chance to ask questions. And we'll see if we have any questions. I am not seeing. Debbie, any questions we need to talk about that have popped up?
Nope, I don't see any questions. None popped up, none posted. Thank you for attending, everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. And follow up with Debbie. As you know, she's eager to help you. She loves her job. I guess I can say that, Debbie, from my perspective in observing you, I think you love what you do. Enjoy working with the schools, and please, please feel free to call Debbie. Okay, we'll come to a close then. Thanks everybody for participating. And once again, don't forget that you make a difference in the lives of young people, and the work that you're doing right now to design a targeted, focused, data-driven school counseling program is going to help those kids in your school. Thanks so much, everyone.